We talk a lot on this platform about how to reach your target audience across Google, Facebook, YouTube, what have you, all the different platforms that are out there that allow you to prospect for your potential customers. Today, we want to add one to the list, and that's Taboola. It's a content discovery and native advertising platform that has a lot of different targeting options than a lot of the other platforms we talked about before, and gets you into a number of different spaces across the web that you can't reach through the traditional online advertising platforms that we've been discussing. So today I want to start from the very beginning, since this is probably a new platform for many of you, and go through the account creation, talk about how to get your first campaign set up, and give you a bit of an overview of the interface. Let's hop in. The first thing to know about creating an account on Taboola is that they make it a little bit hidden of how to get to your actual account creation. And on the website, they have a lot of contact us pieces, which is fine, but it's easier if you just go to signup.taboola.com to create your account, and it'll look exactly like this. There's a short form that we need to fill out to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill in all of the placeholder information that we need, and then I'm going to click Get Started once I'm ready. When you do that, Taboola prompts you to go ahead and start creating your first campaign. Effectively, what you're going to do is start here with the URL that you have in place. So I'm just going to go ahead and put a placeholder URL here, and I'll go through this process and kind of show you what it looks like. Click Add URL. And now it's basically scraped the page and is showing what it would look like if we had a very basic version of an ad on Taboola showing up. So I'm just going to go ahead and click Next. Now into campaign settings. So first thing you need to do, just like other types of platforms, is we need to pick our objective. So these are going to be the different objectives we have: lead gen, online purchases, brand awareness, web engagement, mobile app installs. I'm just going to go with web engagement. Targeting, you can set this up here. There will be a lot more options later on, but for right now, let's just leave it as USA. All of the different devices. And then budget, we'll go ahead and leave a placeholder budget of $50 a day and a cost per click of 42 cents just to get started. Okay, now there's going to be the entire billing section of this page. So basically we just need to fill all this out and then hit next. Okay, so once you go through that, there's going to be a bit of back and forth via email, making sure you've got your account set up, all that good stuff. But let's go ahead and jump forward and look at the actual interface of what Taboola is going to look like. Since this is a placeholder account, I don't have any campaigns in here that have any performance. So you're going to have to just go on a journey with me of imagining what some of this looks like. When you log in initially, Taboola is called Backstage on the back end. That's the first thing to know. It'll always drop you onto this campaign summary tab, which will look like this. There will be a chart with different line item information here, and then the data will be broken down by whatever segment you choose up here at the top. So it will default to daily performance, but you can see by week and by month once you have, again, some performance in here. You can break things down by day of the week or hour of the day. You can segment by campaign. You can segment by the site or the placement that they end up showing up on. You can then segment by the different geographies that they were serving in, so by country, region, or DMA for the US. You can segment by platform, or you can segment by audience that you're targeting and see how things are performing over whatever different date range that you want. For the most part, this is what I mean when I say that most of this looks a lot like other platforms. This is relatively similar to what we've seen in other platforms, but customized the way that Taboola does. Everybody has their own flair on it. Right now it's set up to filter for campaigns. I do have a couple of campaigns in here, placeholders, all campaigns. You can segment and choose a certain campaign to see the data for if you want to, or you can end up setting a certain filter and filter by platform, country, site, or partner name, depending on what you have in place. So just know that those are options down the line once you do have some performance coming through. Then top campaign content, again, sorry, there's no actual content in here, but this will also show different line items with the content that you have in your account. So showing you the performance of each of the different accounts, but it's going to be a lot less robust than that campaign summary. It'll mostly just be a line item with some numbers, and that's mostly going to be it. There's not going to be lots of visualizations and that sort of thing. The last thing that's in here that unfortunately we can't really do much with because this is a placeholder account is going to be recommendations. This will be very similar to what the Google Ads or Microsoft Ads platforms will have. When Taboola finds some recommendations it has for your account, it will notify you and it will come up with some ideas for how you can improve performance on your account. So it does have a little bit of learning in here and some suggestions to help make your campaigns perform a bit better. Now that we've gone through the stuff that we can't really do anything with, I also want to show you some of the basic setup pieces that are in here. So billing management and payments, those are pretty straightforward. If you need to change credit card, anything like that, you can do that in billing. And then payments will obviously show you the payment history that you have. Taboola does have a marketing pixel in the way that most platforms do. So let's go ahead and hop into the conversions section to check out the pixel. When you create your new account, over here, this waiting for pixel thing right here will actually be a solid blue color, and it will tell you to create a new pixel. And that's how you can get things set up. So for right now, I'm just going to go to view code because this screen looks exactly the same as when you click create new pixel. There's a section here for Google Tag Manager where you can implement it directly. It gives you the ID really quickly, and then also gives you a link to go to Google Tag Manager, open it up directly and add it in there. If you want to manually add your code to the site, you can also do that by using the pixel code down here. And then the really cool thing is that Taboola actually has a Chrome extension, so you can check and see if your pixel is added properly. So if you use Chrome and you want to be able to QA the pixel setup that you have, you can add this Chrome extension and check out to make sure that your Taboola pixel is all set and ready to go. For right now, I'm just going to hit close since all of ours is not being set up. And then this section, once your pixel is in place, this is also where you'll be able to set up new conversion actions. So let's run through what that looks like. So just like most other platforms, you can set up either a URL or event level conversion goal. First, let's go through URLs. You can change the URL conditions. Everything that you do in Taboola, when you can edit it, if you hover over, you'll see this dotted gray line. That basically just means that you can edit in line as opposed to trying to do something different. So you can choose a drop down of either contains or equals, and then set your URL parameter the same way you normally would, whether you want to use thank you like they have the example here or anything else. You can then add additional URL conditions so that things can hit one condition or another. You cannot have these be set up as an and rule. If you want to have multiple different parameters that something needs to hit, you're going to have to create two different conversion rules for that. Next, you would just set the conversion name like you would normally. You can choose a category of conversion type that this is, whether it's a lead, a checkout start, a purchase, what have you. You can then set a value, the conversion window, and then you can choose whether to include it in total conversions or not. So treat this in the same way that you would your conversions column in Google Ads. Do you want something to show up in that column or do you not because it's a slightly different goal or has a different value, something along those lines? Taboola then has a really cool option, at least I think so, in this audience properties section. It's automatically going to create an audience based off of this conversion action, and you can choose here whether you want to automatically exclude anybody who converts on this conversion action from all of your campaigns. So let's say this is basically somebody who fills out a lead or somebody who makes a purchase. If it's only a one-time thing and you don't want their information anymore, you can just click yes here and everybody who converts on this conversion action will be excluded from all the remaining campaigns you have in the platform. Pretty cool if you ask me. But we can scroll back up and I want to show you what the event option looks like. The first thing you get to choose is what you want your event based on, and it's got things popular and custom. Basically, popular means that it's going to choose from these preset types of actions. So if you want to have one be search or app install, you can easily choose one of these to get started with. So let's just do app install, and then we'll scroll down a little bit. You can then set the properties, so whatever you want that conversion name to be, what you want the event name to be, which is what's going to show up in the pixel itself. You can set a value, conversion window, the include and total, and the audience properties just like you could on the URL rule. But then down here, you'll notice that it gave us a custom code, and over here it's got app install included in it. So that's how you can set up a preset conversion action for events. But remember, there was also that custom option as well. So let's scroll back up and take a look at that. Basically, we took away all of the different options that were already in there, and now you can customize this to be whatever you want it to be. So let's say we want to track a video view. I just set that up the way that it is here. I'll choose view content as the category, I'll leave the value and all the rest of this the same. If you come down here, video view is what was added into the name portion of the pixel. Really easy way to either use a preset or custom event conversion action in your account, however you want. So I'm going to go ahead and create this conversion action. And now you'll see what it looks like when a conversion action is completed. So it's got the conversion name, the type, it'll tell you whatever the status is. Like I said, there's no activity since this is a placeholder account and there's a lot that I can't show you. It'll tell you the category, what the condition is, which is super helpful if you've got URL rules or different custom events. You don't have to click into it and see what it is. It just shows up here. And then it'll give you all the diagnostic information as it would in pretty much any other platform. You can then click the pencil to edit this conversion if you want to. You can click the pause button to effectively turn it off and stop counting. You can archive this, basically getting rid of it, and you can view the code snippet really easy just by clicking this button. So it is pretty easy to go through and make any edits or changes or anything like that that you need to once you have your conversion set up. Let's stay in the pixel section of the interface, but now let's go look at audiences. So now I actually have something to show you in the platform because there are a couple line items here. The first thing that I do want to mention is the way that you see these listed here, this type of formatting with kind of different color line items and the different edit functions over here. That's a lot of what the rest of the platform looks like, whether it's that top campaign content section, the campaign management section, which we'll get to, but then campaign summary. This is a lot of the type of view that you're going to see. Some of them have tables up here at the top, others don't. Just keep in mind that this is a lot of what the Taboola interface looks like. But we've already got a couple of audiences here. So since I created my pixel a while ago, it did create an all website visits audience for me automatically. I didn't have to create this. This just showed up. And then the video view conversion rule that we just created, there's an audience set up for this, just like we talked about. It's automatically going to create audiences based on the conversions that you set up. And again, you can make changes to these just by using any of these buttons over here. The only one that is a little bit different is that this button here with the person and the X basically means that you can exclude all users who are part of this audience from all of your campaigns. It's the same thing we talked about with the conversion rules. So if you go through, set up a conversion action, but you don't select that, and then you decide later on that you do want to exclude everybody who creates that action from your campaigns, you can easily do that here just by clicking this button. So just know that you can go back and do that. But let's go ahead and start to create some new audiences just to see what type of audiences we can create on Taboola. You can create them from the pixel and from customer file. So we're going to do both of these real quick. Creating an audience from the pixel looks almost identical to what it looks like to create a conversion action. You can do by URL or by event. So you have your regular URL conditions, then your audience properties, whether it's your name, the look back window, again, include or exclude from everything, and then you can create a description. So all of this is really standard for what you would see in other platforms. The other is going to be the event, which again looks very similar to the other setups that we've already seen. So you give it the property name, whether it's audience, the event name that you want it to be. Then you get to choose the date range, include or exclude, and then the embed code. But down here you can see event name is still here. When you change that up in this field, we'll just use video view since it's already populating. You can see that show up in this code down here. So whatever you put in the event name is going to be the event that shows up in this pixel window, and that's what you're going to add to your website. So for now, since I already have this audience created, I'm just going to click cancel. And now I want to show you what it looks like to create an audience based on a customer file. Again, this is very similar to what you would see in other platforms. As a side note, this is only for the United States, so keep that in mind. You do need to choose your file from your desktop, and there are some guidelines for that. So it needs to be a CSV that has emails, mobile device IDs, or 5-digit US zip codes. There's a little bit more information here about how to format, all that good stuff. And then you need to make sure that your file size is under 100 megabytes. Keep that in mind when you're trying to upload your file. You can then choose the content type just to make sure that you've got it mapped out accordingly. One thing to keep in mind is that Taboola has some very specific parameters around businesses who extend lines of credit, or basically people who give out loans. If you are in that business, you do need to choose yes to this option. For right now, I'm going to click no because I'm not in that, but if this applies to you, I highly suggest that you read through this and make sure that you are staying within whatever legal parameters you need to be in. The next piece is going to be around targeting type, and I really like this for Taboola audiences. You can choose either targeting or suppression, which is basically the usual type of audience targeting that you would use, whether you want to target this audience or if you plan to exclude them. Or you can choose lookalike, which basically means that Taboola will create a lookalike audience of the users that you're uploading to this list. But if you want to use both, then just click all, and it will include the functionality of creating a lookalike as well as allowing you to target this list or suppress this list. So it's a little bit of a confusing language, but you do have to choose what your purpose with this audience is up front. Again, to kind of cover your bases, it's easy to just click all, and then you can use it however you want moving forward. And then just like the other pieces, we need to create our audience name, add a description, and then you click create audience. But for now, again, I'm gonna hit cancel. Okay, so now that we've done most of the basic sort of account setup piece, I wanna run through what a campaign setup looks like and how you would create your campaign on Taboola. Remember when we first came in here and created this account, it kind of forced us to create a placeholder campaign, but that was a very slimmed down version of the type of campaign you can create. So let's hop into campaign management and go through the more robust option on the platform. So again, my placeholder campaign is populated in here, and we'll go through kind of what this screen looks like here in a minute. But for right now, I just want to click create new campaign. Okay, so we've got our progress bar up here, and we're going to start creating the information here. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a name. This campaign name you will see in the back end, but nobody else will ever see. This branding text down here, this will populate to your target audience. This is effectively your company name that will show up on ads. So whatever you put in this branding text piece, know that the users on the other end will see this. So make sure it's what you want them to see. Now, just like we did in the other setup, let's click campaign objective. So again, I'm just going to go with web engagement. And if we scroll down, we can start to set the different parameters here. Time frame, whatever the start and end date is, if you have a specific time frame you want this to run. For right now, I'm just going to leave as soon as reviewed and when I stop it as the start and end dates. You can schedule your campaign, so 24/7 basically just means it runs all the time. But if you want to customize your ad scheduling, you can do that pretty easily. You can choose from different drop downs, whether it's weekdays, weekend, or every day, and then you can choose what time ranges you want them to run and click apply. But it's going to default you to having it be on every day of the week, all day, effectively here. But as you can see, each time I scroll over this, it's got that little gray box. So if you want to click this, you can choose specific hours, and then it'll allow you to start enabling the ads at a certain time in the morning and only run them until another time in the afternoon, something along those lines. You can get custom with this if you want to, and you can also change the time zone in here if you need it to be set up for a different time zone. For right now, for sake of it, I'm just going to set it up as 24/7. Okay, so now we want to look at campaign targeting. This is where we can start to customize where our ads will show up across the Taboola network. You can choose your campaign target locations, you can block locations, or you can target all locations, which basically means literally everywhere Taboola can run. So if you want to set up a target location, you can start by coming here and just clicking from the drop down. You'll notice at the top, it'll actually default you to continents, Europe or North America, or you can start to find the different individual countries further down the list. So for right now, just to show you what this looks like, I'm gonna click North America, and it will pre-populate the 3 countries within North America, which makes it very easy. Now you'll notice that there is a subsection down here, but all of these other pieces are grayed out. Can't click on them. And the short version of this is that you have to choose only one country if you want to do any of these sub-country targeting. So let's go ahead and get rid of Canada and Mexico. And now these different parameters have come open. So if we want to target a different state, we can choose from the drop-down. Same thing with a DMA region, same thing with city, as well as postal codes. And it will populate all of the individual postal codes for you to choose from. If that's the way that you want to go for it. But for now, I'm going to leave it as entire country just for sake of setting up a campaign. You can then choose the platform that you want to use. So know that platform on Taboola means device, basically. You can either choose desktop, smartphone, or tablet. You can choose the operating system that somebody is using. So you can include certain operating systems. You can also do the same thing just for excluding different operating systems. So if for some reason you don't want to target people on Android, that's your prerogative, you can do that. Same thing goes with different browsers. You can include or exclude different browsers that are available. Come in here, just click the drop down. There are a number of different browsers available that you can choose from, and you can add or exclude them however you see fit for your campaigns. And then you can choose a connection type. You can choose if you want basically anybody on the internet or only if they're connected to Wi-Fi. I would suggest using only if they're connected to Wi-Fi. If you know that maybe you have a video that needs to load or your website isn't particularly fast, something along those lines, that if somebody needs to be on a faster on average internet, you might want to choose the Wi-Fi only so you don't frustrate people with using lots of their data or making it really tough to download the information because they are on a network as opposed to Wi-Fi. You can also choose to block certain publishers if you want to do that. Again, this is a little bit of a hairy situation, but if you want to exclude like news sites, something like that, this is probably more for advanced users down the line, but you can block certain publishers from showing your ads to keep your brand safe. The next thing I want to talk about are the audiences available on Taboola. So this first section, My Audiences, this is effectively any of the audiences we created either based on a URL, an event, or custom audience upload. You can just choose from My Audiences. Then if there is an audience that you can choose from, it will show up in this dropdown. Like I said, this is a placeholder account. There's not much. Same thing with lookalikes. Any of your lookalikes that are available, they will show up in this dropdown over here. And then a different type of audience is campaign clickers. This is one that I think is pretty cool. If you have certain campaigns set up and people have clicked on those campaigns, you can target that audience. Think of this almost in the same way as we do YouTube sequencing. We've got a video on that where if somebody engages with a certain video to a certain degree, you can then target them with a very customized video that comes up next. This is the same thing with Taboola. Let's say you put out a campaign that was prospecting, somebody engaged with that, and you want to target people who engaged with that specific call to action in a very particular way. You can create this campaign clickers audience and target only the people who engaged with that one campaign. Very cool if you're trying to create a very modeled type of retargeting funnel and walking people through very particular steps. So if you click on this drop down, you can see that my placeholder 1 campaign shows up because that's the only other campaign that's in here, but there will be a drop down of all the campaigns you have available to choose from in this campaign clickers section. And then the last part of audiences are these marketplace audiences. And this is where we can start to leverage a lot of the other available audiences that Taboola has on the platform. So these are going to default by the audience size. So you can see that these are pretty big audiences to start with. But what I want to walk through are these different filters up at the top. I think these are really helpful. So the first thing you can do is choose a certain category. So let's just say we want to target people based on their behaviors and interests. So now this segment name column just changed and all of these audiences got rid of anything that was not a behavior or an interest. And the second thing is that this subcategory became available to use. So now we can click into subcategory and we can filter for any of the audiences that are trying to target people based on behaviors and interests around auto and vehicle, beauty and fashion, culture and arts, whatever you want. For right now, let's just say food and drink. And now all of the audiences that are available that are around food and drink, behaviors and interests have popped up. So some of them are very broad to begin with, but let's say you want to target people based on alcohol or something along those lines. You can target people who are foodies, people who like Thanksgiving food, whatever it is. But you'll also notice that this data provider column changed, and you can filter for different data providers. So Taboola provides its own list, but there's also Axiom, Bombora, which tends to do a lot of B2B audiences. Lots of different providers in here that you can choose from. And if you want to filter for only a company that you like to use, now you can start to find all of the new star audiences around people who have behaviors and interests in food and drink. And then when you choose the audience that you want, all you have to do is click this blue plus button and it's added to your campaign. You can add multiple audiences, but know that this is going to be an or statement between these. Somebody can be interested in casual and fast food diners or Heinz ketchup. Either audience will show up. If you want to do some sort of an and statement, you have to reach out to the Taboola campaign manager assigned to you, and then you can get those added into your account. Okay, so now that we have our very specific audiences set up, let's slide down to this next section around bidding and budget. So just the same way we would do in any other platform, you can choose your bid amount that you want to have in here. Think of this as a display campaign because that is very much what it is. And it's going to be on a very broad network, and you saw the audience sizes that we were just working with. It is a pretty broad targeting type. Keep in mind that you do want your cost per click to reflect how specific your audience is. Choose a value that makes sense to you. I'm just going to put in 75 cents and use that as a placeholder. So now you can choose your bid strategy. Think of this as effectively effectively setting a manual CPC, which would be fixed bid, or enhanced CPC, which is smart bid. It'll kind of go above and beyond what you need to get, but it'll try and keep your bid amount that you put in mind, just to make sure that you are going after different opportunities that could result in the conversions that you want based on your marketing objective, but it's also going to probably go over that amount. Pick whether you want to be fixed or smart bid. You can then set a goal CPA if you want to, just to help Taboola optimize for the goals that you want at the price that you want. And then you can set your spending limit, or basically your budget, and you can have that run for either the entire campaign, or effectively lifetime, or a monthly flight. So if you'll remember from Capterra, you give that a monthly budget, and Capterra serves that evenly over the course of the month. Taboola works in the same way. There's not a daily budget here that you would set, but you can set a monthly flight and basically give it the budget that you would want for the entire month. And then you can set a sort of balanced or strict setup for the daily budgets that are in here. So if you want your budget to be split pretty evenly, Taboola suggests using balanced. You can set a strict daily cap, which will almost be like a daily budget, but not quite. It also means that if there are a couple days where Taboola underspends, it will not then overspend by the same amount to hit your monthly flight budget that you have in place. And then the last thing is going to be around the creative traffic allocation, or that's a fancy way of saying ad rotation. So do you want your ads to rotate evenly in the way that you would for most search platforms to do a A/B test, or do you want Taboola to optimize your ad creative based on which one is performing best or which one is perceived to perform best? I almost always set it to even because I'm trying to do some sort of a creative test, but if it makes sense for you, you can set it as optimized as well. Lastly, we can scroll down a little bit, see the last two sections here. Tracking. This is something that you can use as a campaign level tracking template for your campaigns. Taboola already has some preset information in here. So if you want to use UTM source Taboola, which makes sense. If you want to use UTM medium as referral, that's fine. If you want to change any of this, add anything to it, create a campaign UTM parameter, you can add that in here. When we set up the ad creative, which we'll get to in a minute, that ad creative will override this section of the tracking code, but you can put this in here if you don't want to add any additional tracking to your ads and you want it to live at the campaign level. It's very similar to tracking templates in Microsoft Ads or Google Ads in that way. Then if you're using some sort of third-party tag, whether it's DCM, IAS, or Moat, you can add all of those in here as well. And then any additional comments that you can put here. Remember earlier I mentioned that to create an and statement in your audiences as opposed to an or statement, you need to use your Taboola contact. This is a place you can do that. You can set up the campaigns in the way that you want, include the number of audiences that you want, but there is somebody on the back end who's going to be approving and setting up your campaign and making sure that they're active. So if you want an audience to be an and statement, or if you have some other parameters that you want to change and you kind of want somebody to read your notes on this, you can add that in this additional requests section and somebody will get back to you or will make the changes the way that you want. So now that we've got that all set up, I'm just going to click continue. So now before we get to any of the actual ad creation, Taboola wants us to confirm all of the different sections that we just set up. So we can go through and review campaign ID, time frame, targeting, all that good stuff. I'm just going to scroll quickly through this just for a placeholder again, and then you click submit campaign to get started. Okay, so now my campaign placeholder 2 is pending review, and now I need to set up my campaign inventory, which basically means the ad units. The campaign itself is set up, it's pending, but there are no ads in it. So the way that you add creative in Taboola is you start off with a URL, and I always suggest that you utilize all of your tracking parameters that you want on your URL here. But this is a lot like LinkedIn, where you submit your URL and then the platform kind of scrapes it to come up with some information. But let's just get started with an easy placeholder URL here. Again, you'd want to add any tracking parameters that you want here, and I'm just going to go ahead and skip that for the time being, but go ahead and click add. And again, just like with last time, you can see that Taboola has gone and grabbed a thumbnail from that page. It also has the title, the URL is available, and then it shows the status, and then a number of different places where you can edit. So you can either pause the ad, delete it, or you can see an ad preview, which is pretty interesting. To edit this, as you can see each time I go over this, each one of these fields has the gray box and a pencil. So if you want to change the thumbnail as opposed to the one that's just scraped from the site, you just click on the image, Taboola will then let you choose a new image either from the local file that you have on your site. You can use a web URL. They have an image library, or you can use a video file that's available. With the image that's in here, you can choose a focal point, so it can be automatic, or you can choose custom, where it basically gives you the image that it chose from. And then if you wanted to, I don't know, let's say focus on this portion of the page as opposed to the automatic version that it did, you can do that if you want to. And you can choose to set your focal point on the ad creative. But for now, I'm going to just choose a new file to upload, and it'll update the preview on what we have here. And then if you do want to see the placements, you can just click Placements Preview, and you can open this in a new tab, and Taboola will show you what the preview of this ad will look like in all of the different placements. So obviously I just chose a image that I already had available. It was not created specifically for the Taboola placement, but it does allow you to see what your ads will look like in different placements on the Taboola network. So a very handy tool that you've got here. You can see that some look okay, like these look okay, but then as you get further down, they don't look great. Things are being cut off. So down here at the bottom, you can see that Taboola gives you some parameters for what your sizes should be. There's also a best practices guide down here that you can click on, and it will take you to the Taboola Help Center where you can see title and thumbnail best practices for what you should use in your creative. So if you do want to make sure that you've got the right thumbnails in place, they do have some suggestions for that, as well as some different pieces that you should focus on for title and how you can write the title of your ads, all that good stuff down here at the bottom. For now, I'm just going to run with this just to get the placeholder in there. And then if you want to, you can change your title in the way that you normally would. Remember that your business name that we set up at the beginning is going to populate. So if we were to have Paid Media Pros here, it would say Paid Media Pros and then Paid Media Pros again, which is redundant and doesn't need to be in there. So you can change the title of your ad to be more specific. And if you need to change the URL for any reason, you can just click on this, change it however you need, and then save it. If for any reason you realize that you need to change something about your campaigns and the different targeting or anything like that, you can click Edit Properties, and this will take you right back to the campaign creation process that we were in earlier. But if you're all ready to go and you have all the creatives that you want, you just click Finish, and it'll save your campaign. And now the campaign has shown up here. You can see up at the top that placeholder 2 was successfully saved. You can see all the information just like we did with placeholder 1. But again, like I've said, there's a lot that is very similar to all of the other views within Taboola, where it's got the campaign name. You can click on it and get more information out of it. You can see the status, and anything that shows up in this gray box you can change directly from this view without having to go in and adjust anything anywhere else. You can then also pause, or in the case of placeholder 1, you can activate the campaign. For right now, I'm going to pause placeholder 2 because that's a terrible campaign setup and I don't want to do that. But you can also then edit the campaigns by coming here. You can edit the campaign inventory or the ads because those are going to be in two separate places. So you can directly impact the ads by clicking here. And if you decide that this campaign is going gangbusters and you want to do the exact same thing but maybe make some tweaks, you can duplicate the campaign by clicking this button right here, and it'll duplicate the campaign and all of the inventory or ads that are in there as well. So this is a really easy way to duplicate your campaigns if you're seeing a lot of success on Taboola and you want to extend the number of campaigns you've got. As you can see, the Taboola interface is pretty similar to a lot of the other ones. So if you've run online ads before, you're probably not going to feel completely lost in the interface. There are plenty of targeting options for you to go after and finding new ways to reach your audience. And hopefully this overview has made you feel comfortable enough to get started, start testing some ads on Taboola, and start seeing some results. Thanks for watching our video. If you thought it was useful, give us a thumbs up below.
We release a new video at least once a week, so if you want to get notified of when a new one comes out, be sure to subscribe to the Paid Media Pros channel.